Normally we had a budget, and there's always it is followed by different types of budget speeches by so-called prominent, eminent economists and people of repute. They are analyzing the budget. If you really ask me, we have a 5-year plan, and actually the budget has to be in tune with the 5-year plan. But these politicians, what they have done is, because of vote banks, they really deviate from the plan and they come up with whatever things which they want. In fact, in 2002 there was a plan to make Mumbai the financial capital, Shanghai, nothing has happened. Then banking reforms were due in 2005, nothing has happened. So whenever we look at a budget, it is an intention, but ultimately it is walking the talk which is important. And it's also important to understand that the government which comes to power, how do we judge the government? We judge the government by doing what they have promised. So today Rajiv's topic is going to be of not dissect the budget as such, because that's what we don't do. But there is one important change which has come with real estate trust, and Rajiv is going to talk about that, how it's really going to affect us. Over to you, Rajiv.
Aspects relating to the budget as they pertain to investments, not the overall deficit numbers or this and that. One is taxation of debt funds has changed now, how that impacts investing going forward. Most people know what it involves, but I'm looking at it from a slightly different perspective. We look at real estate investment trust, we'll briefly look at infrastructure trust, and there is an announcement of pension funds, mutual funds and pension funds promoted by insurance companies being brought at par. So is there something that can be done over there? I think it would be interesting to ponder on this question. What is, before even coming to income tax, let's look at what income is in the first place. For anyone who's selling labor, who's working for someone and getting salary, it's clear that this is what my income is, what the monthly paycheck that comes to me is income. But it becomes slightly complicated when it comes to investments. When it comes to investments, the concept of income is not very clear. Some people look at 100 rupees was put in a bank fixed deposit and 10 rupees was earned out of that. So that 10 rupees is the income. That is the general perception. Which is, in my view, a very flawed way of looking at things. The reason why that 10 rupees is not your income is that with that 100 rupees, you could have bought something 1 year back, which is now costing you 110. So if inflation is running at 10%, essentially you have just only preserved capital. You have not generated any income out of it. And if you are going to spend that 10 rupees in paying your electricity bill or whatever, you are essentially consuming your capital. So that is the fundamental divergence I have with the commonly understood concept of income. So we come to a concept of nominal income versus real income. Real income is the actual growth in purchasing power, the actual return that you make. So suppose in the economy or in the country, let's say European Union or Japan or wherever, if you have invested 100 and at the end of the year you make 105, then that 5 rupees is your real income. Whereas in India, if you assume an inflation of 8% and you have made 10 rupees, then only 2 rupees is your real income. So this is where I think all finance ministers in India are chores in that aspect. It's just in jest, but actually they are taxing you on your loss of purchasing power. For eroding your wealth, you still end up paying income tax to the central government. And this time, until last year, this was only, the chori was only a nuance kind of thing. This year they have actually said to hell with it, we'll tax what we want. So what they did this time round is, they said that debt funds earlier were getting this indexation benefit. So if you put in 100 and at the end of the year if it grew to 110, then you could look at the inflation index prevailing at the beginning and look at the inflation index at the end, and you could inflate your cost of acquisition and pay tax only on the difference amount. This year they have removed that benefit unless you hold the investment for 3 years. So that is the first big change that has been made, and this is widely known. This was widely reported in the media. One change that was not widely reported was that they have tinkered with the very concept of inflation indexing. Even if the government data, their own data, says that consumer price inflation for this financial year was 10%, the Income Tax Act will take 75% of that inflation rate and notify it for indexation purpose. So they are actually moving away from the concept of true indexing. They are saying now the inflation index will be an arbitrary number which will be lower than the actual inflation index. And then my question is, why 75%? Why not 50%? Maybe next year you'll do it 50%. The year after that 25%. So essentially saying, even if you have just earned currency notes without any purchasing power, we'll impound some of those. So we have a scaled down inflation index now. And the other issue with the whole change in taxation with regard to the finance bill, and hopefully the last point will get corrected sometime soon, is that again we get into the realm of retrospective taxation. So when the new government came to power, the President's address to the Parliament, the first address which lays down the agenda for the government, he said that India should be a business-friendly country and we should not get into retrospective taxation and all of that. Even in the budget speech, the finance minister started with that, how retrospective taxation is bad and various things. However, when it came to his own budget proposals, effectively debt funds have been brought under retrospective taxation. So someone who invested money in debt funds 1 year back, going by the tax laws that was prevailing at that point in time, that person will be brought under tax right now for no fault of theirs. So essentially, if these kind of things keep happening, the business confidence that we are trying to build or the trust that we are trying to get will never come. It's like saying you drive from here to Pune on the expressway. All along the expressway you see speed limit signs, 80 kilometers, some places 50 kilometers. You are a very disciplined person, you drive within the speed limit. After you reach Pune, if the traffic cop were to catch you and say, no, now retrospectively I am changing the speed limit, now pay a fine. Essentially, this is what has happened to investors.
There is one thing which can happen, this debt fund issue, a lot of papers and recommendations that are sent to the FM. The discussion is going on. We really don't know whether it will continue or will it be reversed? You have to wait till August, whatever.
But that is what he said just now. When you are on your phone, he said the same thing.
Sure, so we are,
It will be changed.
Could be changed.
Yeah.
so we are hoping that this is changed. However, what has happened this time around, usually the budget is presented in February and they have time till end March or somewhere or even later dates to pass the finance bill, and it goes to a committee and there are provisions which are changed before the passing of the bill. This time the finance bill has already been passed, so the new provisions are already law. Now what has to happen is amendment has to be again taken to Parliament and reversed. So even if it is ultimately reversed, people might have to pay tax right now under the existing law in terms of advance tax and whatever, and then send in the queue for refunds which will again take whatever time, 2 years, 3 years. So essentially this was ill thought out. And the other issue here is, when we are talking about this nominal income versus real income, the Indian investor is smart, they are not dumb. All RBI governors and all finance ministers keep portraying the lay investor as dumb. They say all Indians are foolish, they buy these old relics called gold and land investments and all of that. But they are buying these instruments because they don't trust the currency, because they don't trust the government to keep deficits in control and to keep inflation under control. And the rationale given for this change was that corporates are benefiting more than the ordinary investors. The logic for giving that benefit was not examined. Why is it that indexation is allowed to debt fund investors? Indexation is allowed to protect against inflation. It's not that some favor is being done to investors. It's not that they are being pampered. Once you bring out provisions like this, all the effort that has been done by SEBI, by asset management companies, by financial planners, in bringing investors to the financial markets rather than buying gold and stuffing it into their lockers, all that goes waste. With one change in law, the mindset completely changes. So net what has happened after these changes is that if you are an investor who requires regular income from your fixed income instruments, don't go to debt mutual funds. Answer is very clear. There is no two ways about it. The best option today for investors is to buy tax-free bonds which are quoted on the stock exchange. Currently, primary issuances are not on, but a lot of bonds were issued in the month of February and March and January of this year. You can get those bonds in the secondary market, and the interest income from those bonds is tax-free. So, as long as there are no future amendments, you can hope to get some tax-free income from these bonds.
What about arbitrage funds?
Let him finish. That's a nice question. That on arbitrage funds, so after this change, all the financial planners have started pushing arbitrage funds. Arbitrage funds are equity funds which buy in the cash market and sell futures, and so without taking equity risk, they try to get fixed income kind of returns. And under the current tax laws, those would be tax free. The problem with arbitrage funds is this: the return on that these funds generate is on a month-to-month basis. The appetite of the market for arbitrage money is limited. If even a fraction of the money that is there currently in debt funds were to come to arbitrage funds, let's say 20% of that money comes to arbitrage funds, the returns that arbitrage funds are able to generate will plummet. So it will no longer be attractive enough. So based on past returns and the current tax laws, arbitrage funds are looking very, very attractive. But after you put your money in and then you wait for returns to come in over the next 6 months or 12 months, my feeling is that people will be disappointed. In fixed maturity plans, what would happen is you could predict your return. You could more or less be certain about how much return you will generate over next 12-13 months. That kind of certainty is never there in arbitrage funds. At best, you can say what is the 1 month return prevailing right now.
Rajiv, if somebody is willing to hold his investment for 3 years, then is he effective?
I'll cover that. If you are willing to hold your investment for 3 years, one, you will not be taxed every year. That is the good advantage. At the end of 3 years, it will be treated as capital gains. That is good. But as I mentioned, at the end of 3 years, you will still end up paying tax on your nominal return, part of your nominal return, not on your real return. So the inflation index formula itself has been tinkered with. See, earlier the entire inflation component was tax free. Only the return you got above the inflation index was taxed. Now that tax rate has gone up to 20% and the index rate has been artificially brought down. So the return will not be as attractive as what it was. Even if you are willing to hold for 3 years, the best option as on date is tax-free bonds. So actually the question that you asked was the next slide. The tax sheltered accumulation vehicles. I'll cover what these mean. I'll just give you an example first. Let us say you have two instruments, debt instruments, very predictable instruments, same kind of credit quality. We call them A and B. Let us say both of them are cumulative instruments, or rather you don't want any cash flow now. You are willing to hold for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. You just want the money to grow. You are not interested in income from those instruments. And both of them are paying you 10% per annum. Same rate of return. However, on option A, let us say you pay a tax of 30%. So what happens is, if you put 100 rupees in option A, that 100 will grow to 110 end of year 1, but you don't get to keep 110. 3 rupees you have to give to the government, and you are left with 107. That's how the option A works. Option B is also not tax free. It also has a 30% tax. However, option B is what I would call a tax sheltered vehicle. You don't pay tax till the time you actually take your money back. So here 100 goes to 110, you don't pay any tax. 110 will further compound. You will get 11 rupees next year and so on. That will keep compounding over a period of time. And finally, when the entire money you redeem, your redemption amount minus 100, which is your cost price, on that gain you will pay 30%. So just look at the difference between the amounts. In option A, 100 rupees will grow to this much amount after 30 years. whereas in the second option, it will grow to 1,251. So this is the power of compounding. It always helps to accumulate in a vehicle where day to day or year to year your tax liability is not there. You pay tax only when you consume the returns or when you want the thing for consumption. So despite the tax changes, mutual funds are still tax shelter accumulation vehicles. So in that, till the time you redeem the funds, you will not pay tax and there is no TDS, etc. So from that point of view, if you want to use it, maybe it still has some value. If you want to, if you are adamant that you want some debt allocation and you want to keep accumulating some money, then go in for growth plans rather than going for dividend plans or things, and then stay put in those vehicles. So just like mutual fund, provident fund is an example for salaried employees. Provident fund is a tax sheltered accumulation vehicle. In fact, it's exempt. So it's a very tax efficient vehicle. Even when you get the money back, you don't pay any tax. So this is one option. A lot of people forget about this, but PPF also, to the extent of 1.5 lakhs a year, is a vehicle which accumulates tax-free returns, and even when you finally get the money back, you don't pay any tax on that. Gratuity funds or superannuation funds which are created by employers are tax efficient because when they put money in the fund, the employer gets a deduction. The employee pays no tax on that, and the returns of the fund itself grow in a tax efficient manner. And finally, when the employee retires, that time also tax benefits are available. And growth plans of debt mutual funds. So where Mr. Jaitley made debt investments unattractive, he went out and made real estate investments attractive. I will discuss the provisions relating to real estate investments. And overall, I think this is a good step because it will bring about some transparency in the market and it will enable business people to start their businesses without locking up a lot of money in real estate investments and so on. I am not so sure about the timing of the measure because the residential real estate market is still in a euphoria kind of thing. Prices really haven't come down, even though there is a lot of unsold inventory and sales have come off to a large extent. Commercial real estate, maybe prices are at a proper level or what, I don't know, but at least residential market is still in a euphoric kind of scenario. So I'll briefly look at the real estate investment per se, and then we look at the investment trusts. So why do people invest in real estate? One, it gives you a combination of income and capital appreciation. So in debt instruments you just get income, you don't get any capital appreciation. If you buy maybe a painting or something, there's no income that you get out of it, but maybe if someone likes that painting and the price goes up, you get only capital appreciation. In equities and in real estate, you get both. You get periodic income as well as you get capital appreciation. So that is one of the attractions of real estate. Again, that income moves up over the years. So like equity dividends usually go up if you have invested in a good company. Rentals also will usually move up as inflation picks up, as capital values appreciate. So that provides some hedge against inflation. And finally, if you own an office premises or if you own a building, it's difficult to be cheated out of it unless someone encroaches on that. But in equities, you can always have a Satyam kind of thing or a Enron kind of thing, and your money can go away. So, in countries with weak regulation or in sectors with bad regulation or bad governance practices, that fear is always there. However, real estate investing is not easy. The first hurdle which comes is ticket size. If an office sells for 20 crores, even if you have 2 crores, you can't buy it. Either you have 20 or you are not in business. And again, it has to be in multiples of those amounts. If you have 25 crores, you can deploy 20 crores, but the remaining 5 will have to remain in your bank account. You cannot do anything with that if one office sells for 20 crores. So, the ticket size is the issue in real estate investing. Then for most people, even if you manage to have, let's say, a large amount, at best you can buy one flat or one office or something. There's no diversification. If, let's say, you have a office in Nariman Point which you are letting out, and the entire business district moves away from Nariman Point, then you are stuck with a property which no one is letting out from you, and your income goes down from that. You don't have the benefit of diversification, which you get in equities with smaller amounts. There are a lot of transactional costs. Each time you want to buy real estate and each time you want to sell real estate, you pay huge amounts of stamp duty, registration charges, brokerages and all of that. So, it's not economical buying and selling real estate. Again, capital gains taxes will be there and so on. Also, the hassles of owning a real estate are known only when you end up owning one. Before that, you'll never realize those things. So suddenly, your tenant will face financial difficulties and that person will want to vacate, or the checks will start bouncing, or some termites will eat away all the office furniture and then you'll have to spend some money in pest control. One tenant will vacate and you have to get the whole place painted and renovated and all of that for the new tenant. There will be water leakage and seepage in the premises, and then you will have to go and supervise the repairing of that, and all sorts of, there will be fights for parking places and various things. So the problems of real estate will be known only when you actually own the property.
I think you should have been a builder.
Or no water at all.
Or no water at all. Or sometimes out of the blue, someone will come and say your building is on forest land and it should be demolished for like Capital Society will say your floor is illegal or something like that. Then you have zero liquidity. You can't put your emergency money in real estate and expect to realize it in 3-4 days or a week's time. There's no liquidity in real estate. And many times you are not clear on title, whether occupation certificate is there or not, whether the plans are approved or not. People will want to deal in black money and all of that. So for some that may be advantage, but nevertheless. So that's where this new vehicle comes in, and which in my view takes away most of the disadvantages of real estate investing. Now, the SEBI guidelines have not been finalized yet. This is based on the draft guidelines which were released last year, and they are on the website of SEBI. considering the fact that the finance minister has mentioned real estate investment trusts in the budget speech, it is my expectation that the final guidelines will be released soon now, based on the draft guidelines, and things won't be too different from what the draft guidelines say as of now. So the draft guidelines say that currently you can put in a minimum of 2 lakhs and be in business. You don't require crores of rupees to be a real estate investor. You can start with as low as 2 lakh of rupees and then in multiples of 1 lakh. Again, each of these trusts will be for a minimum of 1000 crores, the size of that, and then some of them will be even bigger. So if you have 1000 crore real estate and you are a small participant in that, you are a unit holder in that, this trust will probably invest in various cities, in various localities, in a mix of assets, things like multiplexes, malls, office premises, shops. So you will not be stuck with one locality or one unit. You will have a diversified interest in a lot of real estate projects. Again, this is a very interesting safeguard. These trusts will not be buying under construction properties or in startup projects. 90% of the money, as per the draft guidelines, should be in completed projects which are generating income. So the execution risk with a new project is taken away. Potentially some of the return is also taken away from those things. But still, from the point of view of safety of the investor, it is reassuring to know that the property has been completely built and it has some tenants who are paying rent. Also, the trust will not hoard the income that comes. Whatever rental that they get, most of that will be passed on to the end investor. So it will be an income generating asset for the end investor. See what happens when you buy a property. Let us say you are paying 10% stamp duty and registration charges. When you again sell those, again you will pay stamp duty and registration charges. Here what happens is, when the trust will buy those assets, it will pay those stamp duty and registration charges. However, that property will remain in the trust for a long time. The retail investors, when they buy and sell these units of 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs on the secondary market, on stock exchanges, that time there won't be too much of transactional cost. So that you can buy and sell like these units like debentures or equity shares or whatever. So the ongoing transaction cost will be very low for the retail investor. Again, all these hassles of insurance, repairs, and operational assets will be taken care of by professional managers. So you don't have to waste time behind that real estate investment. You will have a set of professional people who will take care of that. And it's a new instrument, so I don't know what will be the actual performance in the market, but I would think that if the promoters of the trust are reputed people, let's say the first name that comes to my mind is someone like HDFC or maybe someone like IL&FS. Those kind of institutions promote these trusts, then my guess is that it would have a wide following and they would be quite liquid in the market. And these trusts will value all the properties every 6 months and they will disclose the actual per unit value based on the market prices, so that people can calibrate the secondary market price. The secondary market price may be at a premium or a discount to the underlying asset value, but it should be close, that is my guess. again, hopefully all the properties and things that these trusts buy will be of a high quality and there won't be any title issues and so on. So this is my guess as to how things would pan out in the future. Again, probably we are 6 months away from the first of the trusts to hit the market. But as I mentioned, currently yields on residential projects are very low. You are getting in our city, you are getting things like 2% yields or 3% yields on capital values. So it won't be attractive enough for real estate trusts to buy those assets. My feeling is that they will go for commercial properties. So you could see these people buying out, let's say, entire buildings in BKC or entire malls and shopping complexes and things like that, where they could get yields of maybe 8% per annum or something like that. See, in residential project premises, again what happens is, if you own an entire building with maybe 100 apartments, you have to deal with 100 tenants. Whereas if you have a floor in a commercial office, maybe one MNC will sign up for the entire floor, or maybe even 3 or 4 floors. So the number of transactions become that much lower. So my strong feeling is that REITs will go for commercial property and not residential property. And if the yields are, let's say, 8% per annum on those investments, we still do not know what will be the expenses, the management fees of the trusts. I am assuming, and I may be wrong here, but if they charge something like 2.5%, then the net yield to the investor will be somewhere about 5.5%. This 5.5% will be fully taxable. There are no tax breaks available to the end investor, but the trust itself will not have any tax liability. So the good part about this yield is that over a period of time it will grow with inflation. So there are escalation clauses in rental agreements with corporates, so that yield will grow over time. And plus you can get capital appreciation as the property values go up. So that is what I feel will happen in the real estate investment trust space. Any questions here? Yes, sir.
When the trust sells the property, you have talked about income from the property through these. How will that profit be distributed among the stakeholders?
So I am not too clear on that. My feeling is that the end investor will have the liability on that capital gains rather than the trust having the liability.
Then they would have to keep reinvesting whatever they sell instead of need to buy new stuff.
Typically, you would not see a big churn in the holdings of the trust. Typically, you would see unit holders selling their units, but I am sure there are going to be some sales which will happen by the trust. The trust may feel that this office block is overvalued and I am finding better opportunity in some other office block. I'll sell this and buy that. So in which case, sure, there will be capital gains arising on that sale. So whether that money will be reinvested by the trust and the capital gain will not be reflected in the unit holder's account till the unit holder sells a unit, that is one possibility. Or the other possibility is that the trust will send out statements to individual unit holders as to their tax liability arising out.
But isn't it model somewhere else in the world like this?
The real estate trusts are there in many markets, but each market has their own unique tax laws.
So I am not the part, but this kind of
They are there in many countries, yes.
India is going to have first time.
India is going to have it for the first time.
But there are
It's a new concept. I think my clients are already investing in this. In some Piramal real estate fund couple of years back.
We had real estate fund.
India REITs, yeah.
We had real estate funds or even what were called real estate investment trusts.
Okay.
But this animal that is there is a creation because of the finance bill which has been done and because of the SEBI guidelines to be introduced. So far, all the real estate funds that were there were operating under the venture capital kind of model. So, see, even today, nothing stops two of us from starting maybe a private limited company or creating a fund to invest in real estate. But that is not listed on the stock exchange. That does not have a IPO kind of offering to investors. That does not trade in lots of 2 lakhs and 1 lakhs. That does not have an income tax pass-through mechanism. That has no compulsory requirement to put 90% of its money in income-generating assets. That has no requirement to distribute 90% of the income it generates. So that was, it's like this. Before the concept of mutual fund came in, 5 people would get together and start a partnership. But that was not a mutual fund. Here we are having a full taxation mechanism, regulatory mechanism for governance of this.
Appreciate this is better regulated, that was one. But purely from an investment, perspective, don't you think that this is missing out on the main earning cycle of buying at a low price? So, finish the product and something unfinished. There's a huge price gap today in the country.
And can they get the whole building or something like that? They can't buy small apartment.
So the existing mechanism does not go away. The adventurous guys, people who have crores of rupees and who want to, like if Piramal and Suntech Realty and all want to buy a plot of land or get into a redevelopment project and they want to raise private equity kind of money for slum redevelopment or for primary construction, no, that is not stopped. This is at the retail level.
And the small ticket sizes, that is the advantage.
The existing funds structure will remain, that is not being taken away. But for that, you won't have accessible amounts like 2 lakhs and 1 lakh. For that, you will have the alternative investment fund route or the venture capital route of that. So minimum ticket size in crores of rupees and a different risk profile altogether.
Sir, you mentioned that most of the investment is likely to be in office space. Okay, so most of the metros, 80% of the cost is land itself. So I guess the point, after we, invest after the completion will not make any difference because 80% of the cost is land itself. So I don't think after completion.
The cost may be land. The cost may be land. What happens is if you invest at the early stage, you have a project completion risk. That is one. Second, there is no income generation on that for the initial gestation period. Here they are saying the retail investors should not bear the initial risk. Let someone else take that risk and let someone else take that reward. This is actually closer to a fixed income kind of investments rather than a equity or the builder mentality that I'll buy the land and I'll construct so much of flats and offices and I'll manipulate the FSI laws like this and I'll do a transfer of development rights and I'll do this and I'll merge the balcony into the main. So this is not that. This is, you have created something, you have let it out, you are getting income on that, put that in a way.
But law is also stricter now. If you are not completing project within the stipulated promise, whatever you made, you can be put behind bars. That's what the law says.
See, the investors are not interested in the promoters going behind bars. They are interested in getting proper cash flows. So we are not debating what can be or what should be or things like that. We are looking at the guidelines as they stand today. And these are the draft guidelines, the final guidelines haven't been notified yet. But it should happen soon, that is my guess.
What would be the rule for diversification, like in terms of number of cities or number of properties and tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, how does it work?
From plain reading of the guidelines, I did not come across anything of that sort. So, as of now, technically the fund may invest in just one building 1,000 crores. I do not know. But my guess is that again, see what will happen is final guidelines will be notified. Then some promoters will actually create these structures and come to the regulator with something like a prospectus or new fund offering document, etc. So in those documents we get to know what the fund is all about.
There has to be a structure to it, right? Because only then can you reduce the risk for the
There will have to be a structure for that, yes. So it provides for independent trustees, it provides for a sponsor company, what should be their track record, what should be the experience and all of that, net worth and all of that.
So in terms of cities and how many
Cities, see, I did not come across any requirements as to diversification. I did not come across any stipulations as to what is the maximum fee that can be charged. So in the mutual fund structure, there is a fee slab. In the portfolio management structure, there is no fee slab. It's left to individual negotiation. So even in real estate investment trusts, I did not come across any fee cap or anything like that. I did not come across diversification criteria.
So if there's overcapacity somewhere and that's all the property that they buy, so it's actually become very unsafe, right?
Yeah, so there are questions that are there. I will be taking some of the questions that pertain to this. So one is, if some of the worst kind of builders come out and promote REITs, then we will have a problem. Rather than a arm's length transaction, they would dump all the unsold inventory onto the trust at inflated rates. So that is one issue. Then these trusts will be allowed to have a leverage to the extent of 50% of the asset size. So that is again something which I would have thought that leverage would be kept to bare minimum, like maybe 5-10% just to meet some liquidity issue. But they are allowed leverage, they are allowed to borrow money and buy real estate. So that is something which is there. Expenses, we are not clear what will be the fee structure. Again, taxes are there, so these things keep changing. If these things become popular, suddenly municipal corporations, state government, central government will try to milk it. So earlier people were letting out offices and suddenly this thing was brought under the service tax net. So then there was a big fight between tenants and landlords as to who will bear that service tax. So if some tax is suddenly brought in, we do not know what will happen to those. Again, these things have to be insured, maintenance charges have to be paid, and further, people forget about the fact that any real estate is a depreciating asset, at least the building, not the land. And after a certain number of years, you have to recreate that asset. And even if the asset is otherwise usable, the modern designs may have changed. So it's not that today Nariman Point is a bad office area. The buildings are perfectly usable, but it's just that the health and safety regulations of MNCs have changed. They want all these fire alarm systems and evacuation systems and minimum area per person and various things. So if fashions and if legislations change, then something which was perfectly good and modern 20 years back or 30 years back becomes less attractive in the current age. So even residential flats, earlier people were happy with maybe a grilled lift. Now people want the fancy automatic lifts, they want swimming pools and gyms and whatnot. So over a period of time you have to keep aside some money for renewal of the asset. So that is what people forget when it comes to real estate investing.
I have two observations.
How cash component will be handled in the
Hopefully everything will be by check, but so see the cash component
will spend 30% or 40% in the cash.
See, typically, cash is involved when land transactions are involved or whatever. So hopefully when the trust will collect money from its unit holders completely through banking system. All that money will come to the bank. The trust will write out one check to the developer to buy the offices, malls or whatever they purchase. Those assets will be let out to maybe IT companies, maybe foreign banks or whoever, who will pay money by check, which will come into the bank account and which will be distributed to the unit holders. I am not saying cash will not change hands for approval of the building plans or for buying of land, etc. But all that will happen before the project is completed. Hopefully there will not be cash from that.
Then how does the government make money otherwise? This is one way they make money also.
In theory it's very good, but in a country like India, where I know that in many cities of India, tier 2, tier 3, 95% is a cash component for the land. And for buildings it is about 50-50 or 60-40. So all that's going to take a long time. Because even the people who got the money, the normal trader, today only 3% of Indians pay tax. But the other people you look around, they're not doing factories. They've got flats, they've got cars, they've got credit cards. They may not be paying tax, but they may be doing partnership companies doing loss for the last 100 years. Chartered accountants are doing great financial engineering jobs. So the question is all this to...
So it will not be a nationwide phenomenon surely.
But I personally feel, and that's my question, if they allow FDI, because in countries like Japan and Europe, you don't even earn 0.5% interest per year. You know that money is lying. So here, even if they get 4-5% or 3-4%, you know, if you can correct it to the exchange, for them it's a huge earning.
If you correct it for the exchange, then there's no income.
No, exchange we do not know, but if somebody would protect them. The other thing is banks which have very deep pockets and which are already into housing finance. Today HDFC is not the only player. There are at least 50 banks or more, and there are a lot of private NBFCs which are into housing finance. So we do not know, it's a great window which has been opened. Let's see, but I personally feel it will be very slow. Great.
Rajiv, for the retail investor, I wanted to ask, when you talk about people with deep pockets, so with all this and with an oversupply of commercial space in most metros and with yields what is projected to be, for the retail investor, how would a REIT compare to an equity mutual fund? And how much could one invest?
So, one is it's a different asset class. So, people who are excited about equity will remain excited about equity. And some, at the margin, some money will go here. But there is a large segment of people who are excited about gold and real estate and who have never come to equities. They don't trust equities. So for them, this will be a big draw. The people who are earlier going to FMPs, I think those are the guys who would be excited about this in the first place. And ultimately it's not about which asset class will give you the maximum returns. It's about what is your investment preference, what is your risk profile. And you have some asset allocation to this, some asset allocation to equities, and so on.
So how much
Also,
of the asset allocation would something like this normally?
Too early.
No, it would depend on the executor. You know it best as to no two people will have the same asset allocation. So it would depend on the risk appetite, the client comfort, the stability of income that the person has, whether that person has a need for getting that periodic 5.5% income or whether that person only wants accumulation. It would depend on those kind of factors.
But even the AMCs might invest in this.
Final guidelines are not out, but my feeling is that mutual funds will not invest over here. unless it's a real estate mutual fund. Mutual funds will put money in equity and debt. This will be directly available to investors on the exchange.
As per the guidelines, can the existing structures, the venture capitalist kind of structures, can they go and list right away?
No, because they will not be meeting the criteria.
Because there is ILNFS with Milestone, they have a couple of funds, ILNFS, Milestone Fund 1, 2, it's a complete REIT structure.
See, there's a whole host of things that have to be done. You have to have a trustee company which will have to be formed, which will be independent.
So it's ILNFS, for example, in ILN.
There will be a trustee company.
Right.
There will be a sponsor which will manage that. There will be a offering document which has to be filed with SEBI.
Okay.
There has to be a minimum 25% float. So if the corpus is 1,000 crores, minimum 250 crores has to be offered to the public. You can't offer just 100 crores or whatever. And that minimum size has to be 1,000 crores. And minimum 90% of that has to be in income generating assets. The leverage is capped at 50%.
Right.
So if some fund by coincidence meets all these requirements and then goes for a listing, it's a different matter. But the way I see it is that this will be a completely different structure. As Mehul was saying, real estate funds are already existing.
Exactly.
But that's a different thing and this is a different thing. The target markets are different. You will require to create fresh structures. That is my reading.
Because that would create liquidity for the existing funds. That would create liquidity. I mean,
the existing funds can sell to these people.
Okay.
So ILNFS itself can float a new fund, offer to the public, and then sell projects here.
Okay.
But the same fund is unlikely to be listed.
I had a question regarding, knowing the risk averseness of equity investors, retail investors rather for new IPOs and new issues. One would think that they would take a long time to really accept this big time. So in that context, are FIIs going to be allowed? Is there any comment or statement you want to add?
I think we'll need to wait for the final guidelines whether FIIs are allowed or not. But my feeling is at least first one or two issuances, and if they come from the likes of HDFC, will get lumped up because even a risk-averse equity investor is comfortable in a real estate ownership somewhere.
Rajiv, every time there is a budget, we always find faults and we always criticize. And you always say that we are dumb investors, at least government feels that. So there must be some real reason for them to do these things in the budget. We're expecting Modi to do better things. We're saying everything is done. We don't know.
Can you throw some light upon what exactly is in the pass-through avoidance or double taxation that would actually clear the path for the REIT?
So
I have a question relating to this. Which are the companies which would benefit with this fund coming into it? Because it's like infra companies who benefit, private companies.
So a typical structure is such that, let's say you have a company, you form a private limited company, let's say who do this. This private limited company earns rental income from the tenants. This private company will pay full tax on that rental income. After paying full tax, if this private company wants to distribute profits to its shareholders, it will again have to pay a dividend distribution tax. So the same income will be taxed twice. Here what the government has said is that the trust will not pay any income tax on the rental income. The trust has to pass that money on to its unit holders, and only the unit holders will pay tax on the rental income or on whatever income. So that double taxation is avoided, and which unless that had happened, people would not come here. So just imagine you have 20 crores in your bank account. You have an opportunity of buying the office directly and getting the rental income directly. You pay tax only once. And if you went through the trust, you would pay tax twice. So no one would go through the trust. Now that this pass-through structure has come, tax will be only at a single point and not at 2 points. As to which companies will benefit, people with unsold inventory, as long as they can find some tenant at some rental yield, they'll have a buyer for the project. So some of these real estate companies who are stuck with a lot of inventory, they could find buyers because of this. But again, it's some time away. It's not that it will immediately kick off. And again, it will be market specific. It's not that REITs will go all out and buy all over the country. They will buy only number one commercial property as per my understanding, and number two only where the tenants are good multinationals or private banks or IT companies, etc. They will not buy any and every kind of project. Can you move on?
If it is leased for 30 years some property by this company and then it will transfer to the MNC or something, I think it's possible.
Sorry, I didn't
Lease the property rather than rent. Like sometimes you lease the thing for 10 years, you pay certain amount, and after 10 years they pay certain amount. It
I
can
think those kind of structures would be, I mean, it is possible that you would see those. Yeah, so if you sell the units of a REIT after 3 years, then it will be capital gains instead of paying the full tax. Another thing that was announced in the budget was infrastructure investment trusts. These are very similar to REITs, so I won't spend much time on it. The only question here is, can you trust politicians to extract a fair user charge? And my guess would be no. So according to me, so let's look at the history. We had the Maharashtra government sign a big contract with Enron where some guaranteed return was to be paid and the state electricity board was to be purchasing power from them and all that. And they had the guarantee of the central government, but finally we reneged on the commitments and we went back. We said, we don't value what we have written on the piece of paper. You have HCC which will build the Bandra-Worli ceiling, and then you'll have politicians going around and saying what we are doing. You have companies which set up power plants based on some agreement or based on fuel supply commitments, and then either Coal India will not give coal or they will not get gas, or even if they are able to produce power, they won't get buyers for that. So airports, metro rail, we say no, very nice metro rail, air conditioned and all that. But charge 10 rupees from Warsaw to Ghatkopar, don't charge more than that. So I am not confident of the government allowing these companies to charge a fair amount to the end consumers. So I think the trust factor here will be very low. My guess is REITs have a better chance of finding acceptance, because finally it's a private sector promoter who promotes a trust. There's a private property which that person will buy and he'll let it out to a corporate. There's no arm admin involved for collection of the user charges. So I would rather stay away from these infrastructure funds. Again, there was this announcement, pension funds, details are awaited. We don't have the final guidelines. I'm not that excited about it, because finally there is that 1.5 lakh limit which is there for investments per person. Within that you have to manage your ELSS, your company provident fund, your PPF, life insurance premium, housing loan repayment and all of that. So how much money will be left for a pension fund is a question mark. One thing that could happen is, if the guidelines are good, salaried employees earning more than 15,000 rupees per month, it is possible they might opt out of the government provident fund and come here. So here what will happen is, the employee pays to the pension fund and the employer also pays money to the pension fund. The employer's contribution will be tax free. And this pension fund can invest in various asset classes, equities, bonds, and so on. So that return would potentially be significantly better than what your government provident fund is paying. So no guidelines are available yet. So we'll watch this space as to how it finally develops. So that's it. Thank you. We have overshot our time today. So let's interact over drinks and dinner.
I only have one